Welcome back, everybody, to video number 2 on my basic photography editing series using Lightroom Classic. I hope you managed to watch the first video that I posted and you were able to take away something positive from it and apply it to your workflow that you have. Once again, it's important to develop your workflow, proper workflow, to create your own style, which is ultimately going to set you apart from other artists. So for today, in this video, we have 15 minutes to discuss how temperature, color balance, and temperature of the light is going to affect the image and how we can localize certain adjustments versus utilizing the universal sliders. It's almost like an add-on from the last video. But let's go and get started here. Let's go ahead and pull up Lightroom Classic and let's get rolling. And we have for today, let me go ahead and expand this and drop the tray down so we have a full view of what's going on here. So you can see the edits as they happen in real time a lot easier. And so I have an image of a hummingbird that I took at the Nature Center here in Kerrville. And so to start, I wanted to go ahead and come out here to the detail tab, detail panel. Then I want to take the sharpening and put it all the way down. Okay. And so I don't want to be editing any sharpening, any noise whatsoever. I'm also going to denoise this image. And really there wasn't a whole lot of noise to begin with, but I thought, go ahead and just make it as clean as possible. And you can see there by turning it off and turning it back on, there is a considerable difference. It's very soft and very clean in the very background, the very back of the image, the background, excuse me. So what I want to do next is I want to go ahead and pull up my cropping tool, and I want to keep the same ratio as shot. And so I'm going to just kind of bring this in, and I've edited this image before making the video, and I found the sweet spot for the crop right about there where his long beak hits this particular third on the grid. And I press enter, and there we have it. And I feel like that's a very, very good crop, very good composition. We have the foliage over here, which is kind of dominating the left third. We of course have this branch here in the middle third with the animal itself, and then over here we have the tip of the branch, and we have some a little branch over here that's kind of soft and out of focus, bokeh in essence. But all in all, I think that's a very solid composition. So on that note, let's go ahead and get started. So today I want to teach you, we're utilizing mask again, but I want to teach you about color balance and how important that is. And so color balance, white balance is right up here. As shot out of camera, this is what I had my camera set to. Of course, we were photographing in daylight. So we're going to pull up this menu here, and I'm going to click daylight, and it's going to kind of cool the image down a little bit. Okay, not drastic, but a little bit. And so as shot, it was 5850 on the temperature, and daylight is going to be about 5500. So it adds a little bit of coolness to the image. I think that looks pretty solid, looks pretty good. If I wanted to bump this up a little bit, I could do that. And I think probably that right there, 56, let's say 5600 is, we're going to roll with that. Okay. You can change the tint of the light, make it a little more magenta or green. I'm going to say where it was, but plus 12, roughly there. So there we have a properly white balanced image, in my opinion. There is a trick that you can do, and we can do that right now. And that trick is to simply take your vibrant slider and your saturation slider and boost those all the way to 100. Now what you get is some really radical, wild looking colors, but it's not the colors per se that I'm looking at. It's the balance of the colors is what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is a rough balance between warm tones and cool tones in the colors when these two sliders are boosted to maximum. And I would say that we pretty much have half the image is warm while the other half is cool. And so in my opinion, that we pretty much got the proper white balance, and we put them back down to 0. So we're going to say 5600 is our mark, okay? So let's go ahead now. Let's jump right in. There's really not a whole lot of editing, but I want to show you what I'm doing to help, a localized editing with the white balance to kind of give a three-dimensional impression in a two-dimensional picture. Okay, so I'm going to click the mask tool. I'm going to click objects, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply, with my crosshair, I'm going to draw an X around the bird. A box, excuse me. And I have the bird selected, which is good, but I have large portions of this little limb that the bird is sitting on. It is also selected, and I necessarily do not want that. Or I should say, I don't necessarily want that. So let's go ahead and click the subtract button and the brush tool. And I have the feathering pretty high. I want to bring it down. I like 70-ish. And I'm going to paint over that, and the red disappears. It means that portion of the mask is disappearing, but it is not doing it at 100%. It's feathered about 70, which means I have to kind of work over this quite a bit in order to erase the mask, which gives me more control. And if I was to slip and run across the bird real quick, you can see how I managed to paint over the bird. I didn't want that. So I simply just come back in, add select brush, and I could paint that mask right back in. So that's a great feature to take advantage of, is the add and subtract tools under any mask that you apply. Okay, so we're going to keep with this mask open, and we're going to slide down here to where it says exposure, contrast, highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks. So I want to go ahead and boost my exposure, and we're going to be just affecting the pixels on the bird. And I want to do it about, let's say, just under a stop. And we're going to boost the shadows to kind of bring out some more details in the feathers that's facing the camera lens. Okay, right as such. And we could turn this on and off. You could see the adjustments we've made, which has been considerable. But here's the key thing: it has been done in a natural looking manner. There's no wild colors, no wild editing taking place. It's pretty controlled, and it maintains a natural look and feel. So on that note, let's slide down here to the detail, the effects panel, and we're going to look at texture, because I want to add some texture back into the feathers. And once again, we're just affecting the pixels in the animal. Okay, so it's very controlled, very localized. So we're going to boost this, and then let's take this up to 100% so you can see in real time what's happening. That's a great view. You can see by moving the slider all the way over to 100, you have some effect taking place, added some texture being added back into the image just on the bird. Okay, so let's say about 53. That may be a little strong for some. I think it's pretty good. Let's go ahead and boost our sharpness. Normally I would wait to sharpen at the very end, and I am, but I want to see in conjunction with texture how that's making the animal appear. And I think that looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. So back to 100%. Let's bring sharpness back. Let's keep texture where it's at for now. Okay, so now that we still have the bird selected with this mask, we have to understand the direction of the light is coming from, it's backlit. So the animal is backlit, and the sun, the light source in the image, is behind the bird. So as a result, from the little bit of time I had with painting, the one thing I learned was that areas that are behind in shadow are they are going to be typically cooler, whereas the areas that are have directed sunlight or directed light source upon them, the highlights, they're going to be warmer. So let's go ahead and take a look at the bird here. We're going to take the temperature slider here, and we're going to take this down just a smidgen. I mean, not much. And this is why. I'm going to turn it off and turn it back on, and you can see how the temperature on the bird, on the breast of the bird, is now cool. Okay, Now, let's go ahead and click out of that. Still natural looking, okay? I want to go ahead and click on the masking tool again. This time we're going to work on the backside, the background, okay? In the highlights of the bird. Let's go ahead and create new mask and the select background. And they did a pretty good job of selecting even the highlights around the, the profile of the bird. And that's perfect because we want to warm that up. And we're simply going to take the temperature slider here and we're going to boost just a tiny bit, okay? Not too much. Let's turn that off, back on, turn it off, back on. It's minimal on the bird, but it's certainly in the background. It is warmed up just enough, just a little bit. You can say, well, why did we do that temperature change at the very beginning of the process? It's just to kind of get us, a starting point, and then from there we can work and adjust in different portions of the image to target specific areas that need to be cooler or areas that need to be warmer. Okay, so I feel like that's a pretty good, solid temperature change there to show the bird and the shadows being cooler, and in the perimeter in the background being warmer. And around the edge of the feathers here, you can see the warmth coming through on that edit. So I think it looks pretty good. One last thing I want to do is I want to take a look at this eye. I love when the animals, especially these birds, they have the eye popping a little bit. So I'm going to select my radial gradient tool and I'm going to draw right in here on the bird's eye. And I want to draw it just a little bit bigger than the eyeball because the feathers and the tissue around the eye itself needs to be illuminated and needs to show a little more detail, in my opinion. So I'm going to go ahead and take this exposure slider and I'm going to bring it up, not until we got noise, but I want to see that eye popping a little bit, maybe even bring some of the whites in. That's a little too much. Right about there, we can turn that off and on. You can see here, let's go ahead and zoom out, and at 100%, or excuse me, where it's fitting on the screen, I should say, you can still see some significant detail even with it being zoomed out this far. And we have a pretty good solid image right there. And I'm going to go ahead and now boost our vibrance and saturation a tiny bit, just a tiny bit. And so now we're going to come back real quick, finish this off with our sharpening, and we select the mask that is on the bird. We don't want to really sharpen anything else. I don't care about the limb. I want the bird to be sharp. And we'll zoom in to 100%. And let's take our sharpness slider and just move it over to about a little too much, but let's say 30. And there we have it. So there we have our edit for this animal, for this image right here, learning how temperature needs to be adjusted for the highlights and the shadows, warmer versus cooler tones. I hope you're able to take away something from this. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. Please make sure and like the video. It allows me to continue making these. And if you have any questions or comments or suggestions, please place them below the video. And on that note, have a good day, and I hope to see you again for the third video. All right, take care. Bye-bye.